live on Twitter? Is it live on Twitter?
It is streaming to Twitter.
All right, I'm going to get Daniel on the line here, Judah. Hey, it's Jerry Daniel. All right, our pleasure. I'm going to get you on the line here. We'll keep you on hold for about 20, 30 seconds, then we'll start the show with you. Sounds good. Talk to you soon. All right, guys, we're going to start the show here shortly. Do me a favor and share the show on any social media platform you're watching this show upon. Daniel Rutherford, Nelson County Commonwealth's attorney, will start the program with us. This guy is a man of influence, a leader in Nelson County. We'll talk Alexis Murphy, and we'll talk some county business with Daniel in a matter of moments. Lee Elberson, the Chief Executive Officer of Claiborne Education, in the 1 o'clock hour as we talk the trials and tribulations of education in COVID. Do me a favor. Hit the like button and share the show on any of the social media platforms you're watching the show upon. Judah Wickower, you're the director. Why don't you cue up the intro and we can start the show when you're ready, Judah.
Right on the set.
Good Friday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille show. We're live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille network. Today, a fantastic program lined up for you. Daniel Rutherford, Commonwealth's attorney, Nelson County, Virginia. Moments away, we'll talk Alexis Murphy and maybe some closure for her family with her remains found this week. Daniel Rutherford in about 20 seconds. Lee Elberson in the 1 o'clock hour to talk education during COVID-19. We'll spotlight the West Main streetscape and Charlottesville City Council. The conversation in Tuesday's meeting was the $50 million plus West Main streetscape project could evaporate along with the new parking garage on Market Street. We'll assess the collateral damage and the positive impacts of these two projects if they evaporate. First, let's go to the line. Judah Wickower, our director. Let's welcome Daniel Rutherford to the show. He's on the I Love CVille hotline presented by Ting Fiber Internet. Daniel, you were live. You got folks over in Richmond watching, Northern Virginia watching, one city councilor watching the program here. First, thank you for joining us. And then second, open-ended, Alexis Murphy remains found this week. We're hoping some closure for the family here and certainly for Nelson County, Daniel.
Very great work. The remains of Alexis has been found. Very important chapter has been complete. And we're able to get closure for Alexis. And I have to give a shout out to my predecessor, Anthony Martin. Back in 2014, he secured some fantastic jury trial convictions and getting justice for Alexis and her family, and we're able to close that chapter again after finding her remains and confirming that it was her. And so I want to make sure the focus is on for the family. That's the most important part because they're the ones who've had to have that loss, and we're just grateful that through the years, almost 7 years, that we're able to then get the closure for the family. So it was fantastic work by law enforcement to get us to this point.
Why don't we start there? Can you highlight, you know this better than everybody, can you highlight the team effort of Nelson County law enforcement, the entire supply chain until how we got to this point? Because it's been it's been a long time.
It has been. It was fantastic work from the FBI's Richmond Division, the Virginia State Police Bureau of Criminal Investigation, now their Appomattox Field Office, the Nelson County Sheriff's Office, and the community. It was a joint work through the years, just keeping the focus As the family would keep the asking for support and prayers, it was a continued focus working on this. And, I'm not going to go into a lot of the details because right now I want to make sure it's just on the family that they've had their closure. But it was a fantastic community of law enforcement and citizens of Central Virginia, just keeping the hope alive and keeping the focus on completing this chapter, finding Alexis.
You got reporters watching you right now, Daniel Rutherford. You got the folks from the Daily Progress and the News at Advance watching the show. Daniel Rutherford on the Ting Hotline, the Commonwealth's attorney at Nelson County. How about this? What's this mean for Nelson County, Daniel?
We never give up. That has always been Nelson's thing. We take care of each other. We always watch out for each other. Again, we wanted to make sure we were there for Alexis's family, to make sure that we had that. And that's, again, what all of this is about. So our law enforcement, we care about our citizens, not just in Nelson, but the law enforcement as a whole. They care about their citizens, and they weren't ever going to give up on this, and they didn't. And it was a great, it was tragic that we had it, but it was great seeing how everyone worked together to get to this point.
All right, shift gears and talk the county in totality. Dude, the future seems so bright for Nelson County. We talk about this with your brother. We talk about this with a number of agents of positive change in Nelson County. Crystal Napier's come on this program. She knows the county inside and out.
Yes.
Anywhere you want to go on the future being so bright right now in Nelson?
Well, it absolutely is. I'm obviously biased. Jesse's my little brother, but he has done amazing things as a board of supervisor. Really focusing on making sure that they work to get the broadband initiative, to make sure that now everyone in Nelson will be having internet. I think by 2024 is the goal, and that's fantastic. Nelson doesn't have the money like a lot of counties do in Albemarle or Northern Virginia or Richmond, but they've been able to work through partnerships or whatnot to be able to have that access. So it is fantastic. I'm born and raised in Nelson, but went to school at UVA for undergrad. Love the Commonwealth as a whole, but Nelson is great. We have the lock-in festivals. We've had lots of things. Dare I say, we have the best whiskey and beer and wine you can ever have in the Commonwealth. And dare I also say, the best ski slopes in the Commonwealth. And my apologies to Mass and Nutton, but Nelson has it. And so it has been great. As for Commonwealth speak, I try to make sure that everything is taken care of and that the citizens are able to enjoy their lives and not have to not have a lot of issues, and so it has been really good. Nelson has been very blessed, and I look forward to see what the coming years will bring, because there's tons of potential.
I'll say this, Daniel. I'll say the Hopwork Orange and the Full Nelson are in my top 10 from a beer standpoint, and we can get those in beautiful Nelson County, no doubt about that.
Exactly. No, absolutely. Full Nelson is one of the best.
Daniel, let me throw this to you. Where do you think the county is going to go? So we've talked, real estate's in our blood. I know real estate's in your family's blood here. Obviously, the real estate's selling like hotcakes in Nelson right now. What do you think the county's going to look like 4 or 5 years down the road?
We're blessed. We're very mountainous, so we're a lot harder to develop than other areas. I always do appreciate people coming to Nelson County. It's interesting. Back in the 19 teens, Nelson had 23,000 folks in it. Schuyler was so populated, it had its own hospital. So it's interesting when people say, we want Nelson how it to be rural, how it always was. I always chuckle and say, well, 100 years ago, we were very, very, very up and coming. With a lot of industry and whatnot. And I don't see Nelson going there, but I do think growth, it would be a good thing for Nelson, but that's not my worry as much as it would be Jesse's. I've always enjoyed it because, it's tons of opportunity and potential for people to come here and enjoy Nelson.
Well said. 2 more questions for you. And this is you, not as the Commonwealth's attorney, you just as a citizen of this fine county here. We've been talking streetscapes here in West Main and Charlottesville. Any perspective you want to offer on the streetscape in Lovingston and the potential with that, Daniel?
I absolutely would love it. Lovingston has not been able to enjoy the growth like Afton or Nellies Ford would. And I think that having the streetscapes would potentially have it more inviting to have businesses. I love seeing thriving businesses. That means people are being successful. That means a host of great things. So I think that is always great. Seeing people succeed is always important. That's what everyone wants. And so I think it's great. I think those things, make everything look good. But as long as we have the focus on making sure our citizens are succeeding, that's the primary thing. I care less about how well a street light looks, as well as as long as our citizens are getting the things. And I think we're doing that.
Well said. Final question, guys. Daniel Rutherford, a fantastic evangelist of Nelson County, Virginia. He's the Commonwealth's attorney in Nelson County, spending about 10, 12 minutes with him. The final question for us here. Anywhere you want to go, Daniel, the show is yours. Maybe a message of hope for anybody that's watching. How have you managed COVID? I mean, it's been a tough year for everybody, Daniel. How about you? How have you managed it?
It has. I enjoy it. Not just being the Commonwealth attorney. I'm also reserves in the Army JAG Corps. And so the Army has kept me busy, but my wife and I were also foster parents. So the day before the virus hit and there became lockdowns, my wife and I had we've always taken on foster children. We have 4 of our own, but now we have 2. We brought in 2 foster children. So it's been a delight working with them. They're little itty bitties. And so that has been a joy. Fostering and helping the community in that way. We don't foster out of Nelson, we foster from a different area. But it's been really good. It's been very enjoying, and took our minds off a lot of things because they're twins. So that has been fantastic, and I'll have to give a plug out to that. If anyone ever wants to be a foster family, I highly recommend it. It has been a fantastic thing, but in addition to fostering, we have a farm. So our family's been busy. We have a little family farm in Afton. We raise cows, some chickens, do the whole bit. So we stay busy, stay good. We like to raise and eat what we grow. And it's been really good. So when it comes to, I know a lot of people have been struggling. We've had family members get sick. We've had some family members pass away from the coronavirus. So I know it's touched a lot of people, and I'm not taking away from that. And I know a lot of community members have been hurt and that their activities are gone. And having activities is very important. It keeps us sane. But we've tried to make sure that our family, our nucleus, keeps going and we do things together. And that has been nice, that we supplemented the activities we generally would do with others, playing soccer or whatnot, with working around the house, enjoying our ever-growing family. And it's been tragic that we've had Corona has allowed us to stay home more, but we've made lemonade out of those lemons.
Well said. Hey, Daniel, listen to this. You're getting props from a lot of people. Nakasha Kreitzer says, Daniel is the man. He's done so much to keep citizens safe in Nelson County. My buddy Shannon says, Jerry, I have the speakers on. I'm looking at the Ty River right now and listening to our Commonwealth's attorney represent our county super well. Your brother's watching right now, giving you some props. And maybe the best of everybody listening, Daniel, the folks at the Lovingston Cafe are listening right now in the kitchen to this interview. You did
fantastic.
You did a hell of a job,
at the Lovingston Cafe.
Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Always feel free to invite me on anytime.
We will. Hey, I'll take you up on that.
Please do.
Okay, you have a good one, Daniel.
Take care, sir. Mm-hmm.
All right, Daniel Rutherford, guys. One of the good guys in the business. Thank you, Jesse, for helping set up that interview. We're very grateful. I love it. I love that Nelson is booming. I love that Fluvanna is booming. I love that Greene is booming. I love that Waynesboro is booming. Did you know the Waynesboro metropolitan area is the 3rd most popular metropolitan area in America for retirees to move to? Look it up. It's a statistic. Find it. Check it out. It was in Realtor Magazine last month. You know what it tells me when Nelson and Waynesboro and Fluvanna and Greene, you know what it tells me? That they're thriving? When they're thriving, it tells me that Charlottesville and Albemarle County are thriving. We are all connected to each other. That's one of the things I say on this program, and Lee Elberson's going to join us in 11 minutes. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Claiborne Education. I'm going to spend 15 minutes with Lee talking about COVID-19 and how it's impacted education and the next generation from a learning standpoint. Before we get to that point, I want to assess the myth or the mindset that we're going to boycott Charlottesville and instead only do business in Fluvanna, Greene, Nelson, Orange, Louisa, Fluvanna, because of the government officials and their leadership tactics. Okay? I own a company called I Love Seville. The entire business is associated with the positive brand identity and the positive action and the positive ecosystem of Charlottesville. If there's anyone in Central Virginia that's frustrated with how the government is leading, it's moi. My name of the company is I Love Seville. However, I know that the municipalities around Charlottesville are associated with Charlottesville's success. So to say I'm going to boycott Charlottesville and only support my home here is just not good thinking. It's a trickle-over impact. Why I bring that up to you is for a number of reasons. And I'm going to open it up to discussion for you on the show. I want you to share your perspective. I want you to disagree with me. I want you to hold me accountable. I want you to have you considered this perspective, Jerry. First thing I need to bring to mind is this $50 million plus West Main Streetscape project. Shockingly, no one else besides this network is truly offering a lens of attention on this $50 million project, which is years in the works, and the impact it could have on Charlottesville, Virginia. Municipalities across the board have less disposable income because tax revenue is not coming in at the clip that was once projected or budgeted. As a result, municipalities and their leaders are having to make difficult decisions. Do we choose the $50 million plus West Main Streetscape project that includes contributions from the Commonwealth, that includes contributions from the University of Virginia, and do we pick this project and prioritize it around school reconfiguration instead of school reconfiguration, instead of affordable housing? Do we go $10, $12 million down the road for a Market Street parking garage when the demand for parking is not now what it was in March of 2020? Or do we wait to see what happens over the next 12 months to see if the demand returns to downtown Charlottesville to need a parking garage to accommodate that demand? It's questions. Leadership has really difficult questions coming down the pipe. I've said it once and I'll say it again. The most important election in the history of Charlottesville, Virginia is the one that's going to happen on November 3rd. And I've outlined a number of reasons why. I've talked about school reconfiguration. I've talked about a $50 million plus West Main Streetscape project that's been in the works for years and is now this close to not becoming a reality. You know what that West Main Streetscape project is going to come down to? Sena McGill. Sena McGill. Michael Payne and Nakia Walker have clearly said on the record they're going to prioritize school reconfiguration and affordable housing over a $50 million West Main Streetscape project. Lloyd Snook and Heather Hill want to see the West Main Streetscape project come to fruition. Lloyd Snook has compared the West Main Streetscape project to the pedestrian mall project of the downtown mall decades ago. Sena McGill, and why we said on this network when Payne, McGill, Snook, Bellamy Brown, and Brian Pinkston, when 5 people were running for 3 spots, we knew Snook was going to win a spot. We knew Payne was going to win a spot. That 3rd spot, whether it was McGill ended up winning, Pinkston could have won it, Bellamy Brown could have won it. That 3rd spot, McGill's seat, is going to be the determining vote on a 5-member council for a $50 million project that's been in the works for years. Now, I want to wrap my mind around the collateral damage and the positives of a $50 million West Main Streetscape project. First, let's talk about the collateral damage. Here's the collateral damage. This project will gentrify Fifeville and Star Hill and these historically black neighborhoods. Throw 10th and Page in there. The West Main Streetscape project will gentrify 10th and Page, Fifeville, and Star Hill, 3 historically black neighborhoods in the city of Charlottesville, at a clip that we've never seen from a gentrification standpoint. You invest $50 million on the road between the UVA corner and the Sacagawea Lewis and Clark statue right before the downtown mall. And the neighborhood on one side, Fifeville, and the neighborhood on the other side, Star Hill, will become coveted real estate even more than they are now. Fifeville, 10th and Page, and Star Hill are in the heart of Charlottesville, in walking distance to everything that is cool of this town. A bike ride, a trolley ride, a bus ride, a bicycle ride, a little walk away from everything that's cool in this town. You pump $50 million down West Main to make that, and streetscape is not even the best description of what's going to happen. It's a massive revitalization, reconstruction, remodeling, a massive change in the look of West Main. $50 million. That will change Fifeville and Star Hill forever. That's collateral damage. That will speed up gentrification more than ever. That's collateral damage. That will make Fifeville and Star Hill more expensive than ever. That's collateral damage. Want some proof? It's already starting. Get Knoll Street on screen. Get Knoll Street on screen. Look at the screen, guys. Look at the screen. Look at the screen. Look at the screen right now. Look at the screen. Is it up there, J-Dubs? It is? Thank you, Judah Wickhauer. 713 Knoll Street went on the market today. Days on the market, not even one. Asking price, $675,000. 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. This home is not even 2,500 square feet. It's not new construction. It was built in 2013. The home's beautiful. The location's fantastic. I want nothing but the best for the seller of this home and the listing agent that is representing the seller, and she's a true pro. I believe it's Karen Ball. The reason I'm bringing this attention to you, the reason I'm bringing this listing to you is the following, okay? Here's why I'm bringing this listing to you. You have a home that was built in 2013 that is now 8 years old. You have a home in the heart of Fifeville, a historically black neighborhood. You have a home that's not even 2,500 square feet, a home that's 4 bedrooms, a home that's 3.5 bathrooms, a home that is on a lot that is 0.12, barely over 1/10 of an acre. And the asking price is $675,000. What do you think happens to similar homes after a $50 million West Main Streetscape project is completed? What do you think is going to happen to similar homes on Knoll Street, in Fifeville, in Star Hill, when the stretch of land between the UVA corner and the Sacagawea and Lewis and Clark statue is the cool, Tony, popular, sweet place to walk up and down because it's brand new, it's shiny? Fifeville and Star Hill are going to be gentrified even more than they already are. Did I think I would ever see an 8-year-old home on a postage stamp of a lot with a list price of $675,000 on Knoll Street? I did not. But that's the world we live in. Questions, comments, concerns, disagree, agree, put it in the feed. I'm torn on this. You know why I'm so torn on this? Because I'm a libertarian. I'm a free market, conscious capitalist. I'm an entrepreneur that took his life savings 13 years ago and put it into a business and had no clients for 6 months. Life savings went away. I was going to the Panda Garden Buffet by Lambeth Commons on Emmett with Ziploc bags and stealing Chinese food because I had no money. And that Chinese food was for my dog and for me for days to eat and stay alive. And when we weren't stealing Chinese food, we were going and getting double cheeseburgers from McDonald's. But eventually, things started to click and the business started taking off. And it took off because we worked our ass off. And that's how the market works. For the most part, The market rewards hard work and people who are willing to take strategic risks. So as someone who is a libertarian, someone who believes in the free market, the open market, someone who believes in survival of the fittest, and someone who believes in the value of hard work, I'm inclined to just let the market do its thing. And what the Charlottesville market is telling us is if you have bags of money and you have means, then you can carve out a niche for yourself. And if you don't, you may struggle. Then I became a father and a husband. And then I started getting different perspective. And the perspective I started considering was that from the eyes of my son and the world that I wanted him to live, grow up in, live in, associate in. And I realized that as a father, as a husband, you want your kid to have as eclectic and diverse and as across the spectrum as possible a childhood and rearing years. And I just don't see that diversity becoming a reality anytime soon. You have retirees flocking to the Charlottesville metropolitan area. You have families from densely populated urban environments flocking to the Charlottesville area because of COVID. You have limited inventory, historically low, generationally low interest rates. And you have a community that is listing homes for $675,000 in the area of the town that is otherwise seen as affordable or the affordable entry option. It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, in regards to the streetscape, to the West Main streetscape, before we get to Lee Elberson, Snook and Heather Hill, Lloyd Snook and Heather Hill want the streetscape. Nakia Walker and Michael Payne do not. That leaves Sena McGill in the middle. You watch her on the dais, and she seems stressed and exhausted. Wait till a $50 million decision rests on her vote and her vote alone. And let's see what happens. Because that's going to come down the pipe very soon. Very soon that's coming down the pipe. And the streetscape, the West Main project, is going to remake the look of West Main between UVA and downtown. Arguably the most important stretch of road in the city of Charlottesville is that stretch right there. Lloyd Snook compared it from a positive impact to remaking of the downtown mall and converting it to a pedestrian corridor some 30, 40 years ago. I'm in favor of the West Main streetscape because I see the positive it can have from an economic vitality standpoint. I'm in favor of the West Main streetscape because I understand bridging the gap between the university and the crown jewel of Charlottesville, the 8 blocks that is the downtown mall, is critically important from the brand that is Charlottesville. But I want everyone to realize the collateral damage of this $50 million project is the following. Star Hill will be gentrified faster than ever, a historically black neighborhood. Fifeville will be gentrified faster than ever, a historically black neighborhood. And 10th and Page will be historically gentrified, will be gentrified faster than ever, a historically black neighborhood, 10th and Page. And that is not being discussed by anyone besides us. All right, Lee Elberson, Judah. I'm going to get Lee on the line here. I want to talk education. This guy is a genius. It's ringing right now. Lee Elberson's on the line. Lee's got a new background right here. I love the art that's behind him, and he's got a red couch. My goodness gracious. Lee Elberson's the CEO of Claiborne Education, a serial entrepreneur a social entrepreneur, a conscious capitalist, a man who gives back to the community left and right. Recently married, a man who's a squash aficionado, and a man who loves to stand on the mountain and say everything that's positive that's happening in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Thank you for joining us, Lee.
Wow, I actually can only go downhill after an intro like that, Jerry. I feel like I should just hang up, right? Because nothing's going to live up to that.
I'm going to follow you around town with a bullhorn and let everyone know what kind of incredible person you are. Before we talk education, which is something that you know inside and out, how about an open topic of trends that you've been following, storylines that you've been following, things that have tickled your fancy that you feel like should be out there to the viewers and listeners?
Yeah, so I think, what always resonates with me is things that I experience that I feel like is a common shared experience. And the background is actually I'm at my mom's house right now. I came down to Louisiana to visit her. And, there's a lot of turmoil in decisions to travel right now. And, I haven't really enjoyed it in the same way that I had in previous years. And I think a lot of people are feeling this. There's a lot of caution fatigue. So my wife and I had to get COVID tests. I had to make sure that my mom had gotten her second vaccination. And then when people ask me why I'm traveling, I have to give this exhaustive explanation as to why I think it's safe to travel. And after you go through all that, what's left to be excited about, right? Like, and this is obviously something traveling there, but that same sort of calculus goes into going to a restaurant, right? Going around town, like you have to feel like you have to explain to people why it's okay. And so, I feel like that sort of that caution fatigue is really just setting in with all of us. And I think what's happening now, at least for me, is like the true impact of the coronavirus is setting in. I think last year, you and I were having discussions on like, oh, when are things going to get back to normal, right? And it's just like, now it's sort of setting in that like, oh, okay, so there probably isn't a back to normal, right? Once you burn your hand on a stove, you don't ever put your hand that close to the fire. And I think we didn't know what a pandemic could do. We heard about what happened, 100 years ago, but we didn't experience it. So now, are we ever going to feel 100% safe about like going and hugging a stranger, like somebody you meet for the first time, or going to a big restaurant gathering or something? And so I think, that sort of realization is setting in, and, like, what are we, what are we in for in the future? Obviously, it's great. I think the new administration is telling us there'll be enough vaccines for everyone by July. And I have my own sort of reservations on that. I feel like vaccines are a tricky subject, right? Because there's an entire anti-vaxxer movement, and I don't want to get associated with that. But I think the apprehension on my end is more on a safety side. We usually spend years on drug trials, 7 to 10 years on drug trials to understand long-term side effects. I feel like we're in a tough position where we don't really have a choice, and we're just accepting whatever the long-term side effects are. And it may come out in a few years that, oh, this might contribute to early onset Alzheimer, or might contribute to something. And we don't really have a choice right now, right? Our choice is bad or worse. And so we're going to take bad. So,
would you take the vaccine? Would you do the vaccine if given a choice? I would do it in a heartbeat.
For the greater good, I would. Personally, like if I was to stay isolated, I wouldn't, because I don't know what the long-term side effects are. Again, I don't know what I'm doing. And we don't have enough time to look at long-term side effects. We've been testing these drugs for less than a year, and so we don't know what the long-term side effects are. Again, I'm going to complain about it, but I'll do it, and I'm going to accept whatever risk I'm taking, just like everyone else. But I think it's okay to voice to voice my caution and say, this is why I'm concerned about it. And, I would not be surprised that if in 10 years we find out, oh, Pfizer actually knew that these long-term side effects, but they were told, hey, keep these under the rug until we push out the vaccine. Then we'll leak these stories later and let people know. So again, maybe I'm like coming up with some conspiracies that aren't there, but like,
I don't think you are.
Based on things that happen with like, DuPont and these things that come out, and it's like, wow, that's really terrible. So anyway, just voicing that. But yes, I'll get it.
I can relay something that happened to me that kind of fits what you're describing, and I don't think you're being a conspiracy theorist at all, because one of the things that's going to return Charlottesville back to this quote unquote normal, and I agree with Lee, we will never go back to what it was before COVID. But from our standpoint, from the layman's perspective, the best opportunity we have to get back to what normal was this vaccine and the consumer confidence that's associated with the vaccine. So I wouldn't be surprised if these companies as well knew some negative ramifications that could come from the vaccine, but they're being told, no, don't bring this up. We need consumer confidence and we need herd immunity. So I would not be surprised by that. I would be the first in line to take it as well. I got a story that I can relay with what you're talking about. So I'm a married guy. My wife knows I'm a married guy here. There was a pretty lady that was walking into the Macklin building, and I'm a gentleman, and I saw her coming in here, and I was a little bit ahead of her. So I said, wow, there's a pretty lady coming into the Macklin building, Lee, and I'm a gentleman. So I held the door open for this pretty lady as she was walking into the Macklin building. She gets within a foot or two of the door where I'm holding the door open for her from the outside. Actually, I'm on the inside holding the door open, and she's a footer. She freaked out because I was holding the door open and I was within that 6 feet, like bubble that you're supposed to. All I'm doing is holding the door open. She goes, what are you doing? Just go inside. Just go inside. I can open the door. Just go inside. And then I was just like, I was flummoxed. I was like, what do I do? Do I let the door close in her face? Do I turn her? It was just such a socially awkward situation where being chivalrous as a gentleman was actually seen as being atrocious in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and think about that. Like, think about when are you going to feel safe to shake somebody's hand, right? Like, next time I see you in person, are we going to feel comfortable shaking hands? Are we going to do the elbow bump thing? Are we going to feel comfortable shaking hands in 2 years? Will we hug in 3? It's just like, I think, like you said, that calculus has completely changed. So those are some of the things I'm worried about. I think there's some exciting changes happening, certainly in the business world, and there's some interesting things happening in the Charlottesville community. I think in the business world, the PPP Round 2 funding is flying through. Banks learned a lot from that first bit, and the approvals are happening much quicker. I think that there was a lot of discussion on like how you should rate a business that needs it. I think resolving it with, hey, if you had a 25% loss in one quarter, yeah, you probably are deserving of it. I wonder if there's an upper end. If you saw a 90% loss, is the government throwing good money after bad? I mean, honestly, it's probably best to just set a lower limit and not an upper limit.
Because you're basically saying if someone saw a 90% loss in one quarter, the likelihood of that business surviving is slim. So why is the government giving it money when we know the business is probably going to fail?
Yeah, but I mean, again, you're trying to support them. You would be speculating a lot. So anyway, I think that's a good thing. I think we're almost certainly likely to see Round 2 recovery funds and funding happen from the localities. I know it's happening at Albemarle County is discussing it. I know Charlottesville City is discussing it. So I think with this PPP Round 2, we're likely to see localities also offer grants and forgivable loans. So I think this is all great for local businesses. Again, I think all local businesses, if you have any questions, contact CIC or SBDC. Between those two organizations, regardless of your size, they have a counselor or they have a program that can help coach you. So one thing I did notice when I came to my hometown of Lafayette, and I was talking to the chamber about small business assistance here, we're really lucky in Charlottesville. A lot of places don't have the sort of support that we have in Charlottesville. They don't have somebody like you on the air bringing business owners in front of the light. They don't have the CICs and the SBDCs. So just makes me really lucky that what we have in Charlottesville. I think when you're there, a lot of times it's easy to focus on the terrible things like, oh my gosh, did you hear about the scandal with Mayor Walker and the credit cards? You hear about this? Like, we focus on all the bad things, and sometimes we don't focus on the great things. I would be remiss if I didn't give a plug for my friend Juan Diego, who's running for city council. Juan serves on CIC's board with me. I think ideally, he'll he made a great school board member, and I think he'll make a great city council member if he gets elected. So, I think there's some exciting things happening in the Charlottesville community. There's also as I was watching your show earlier, some difficult decisions and that we have to make. But there's obviously, we still have a ton of stuff to talk about in terms of education. But those are some of the exciting things I think that I've been thinking about.
What are we thinking for fall semester in public schools? I've had so many parents come up to us and say on the show, I mean, and it happened this morning because people knew you were coming on. We were talking about that you were coming on. And the question that I'm asked is my kid going to go to school in the fall 5 days a week? You know how many times I'm getting this question? And I'm like, how the hell am I going to know? My kid's 2 years old. I don't know.
My money would be on probably not. I think.
Really?
I don't think so. I think it's great what's happening right now. Obviously, the new administration is encouraging or is emphasizing the importance of in-person learning. The governor obviously is putting mandates and telling us, hey, we need to get students back in school, at least in some limited capacity. And in the localities, then they have to listen to the Teachers Association and they have to listen to the other stakeholders. But I think all of that is putting us in a position to do something well, and that is to try out in-person learning in this like limited capacity and with COVID precautions, and figure out some of the issues that we're likely to have. So it's better that we do that now. We end this semester figuring it out. I don't think we're likely to see any sort of summer school programs. There's obviously a lot happening at the state level. Our own Rosa Adkins is running a work group called Virginia Learns, and they're trying to figure out how to deal with the learning gap. But I think there's going to be a pretty major learning gap, and I do think that we've recognized that virtual learning does have some benefits. It's not a completely pointless endeavor. There's some benefits in virtual learning, and so as we move into the fall, I think we're going to still see a hybrid, but they're going to emphasize in-person learning. I don't know if it's going to be for all students, but I think certainly they're focusing on the students that are most at risk. That's what they're doing right now. Phase 4 is emphasizing students who are falling behind, failing, and that teachers have deemed have lost motivation. So they're emphasizing those students. I don't think in the fall every student is going to be in school. I think we're still going to be some sort of hybrid program.
Question from a mom. Laura Mickelson. Lee, are you saying that my kids will be learning virtually for the rest of their public school time? Why don't I ask this? What grades are your kids in?
In some percentage, I think so. Yes, I think so.
Wow. So are they prioritizing? They're prioritizing the efficiency and the health of virtual learning over the benefit of social interaction with the developing mind and body?
Well, I think they're trying to optimize student outcomes, passing a test, right? We know that there's a lot of emotional intelligence gained by students, and that really only happens in in-person social interactions and a lot of those impromptu interactions and relationships that students build at school. So that is going to be the primary vehicle by which they deliver education and that in that ecosystem. But there is a part of asynchronous learning where you are encouraging students to be intrinsic learners. And I think there's a lot of development that needs to happen there. But I think the more you can encourage that, the less I only have to do this to pass a test, right? If they're an intrinsic learner, they're like, oh, I'm going to do this because this is something that's interesting to me and I can make a career out of this. And I think you can leverage virtual schooling to do that, even if it's only for a couple hours a week.
Lee Elberson. All right, I'm going to throw a heady topic to you. Are you ready for this one? Okay, I'm going to compare financial allocations from capital improvement budgets to public school systems in the city of Charlottesville. So Lloyd Snook on this show, he's a city councilor, made a very compelling argument of why we should delay the proposed Market Street parking garage. That's the crux of the Albemarle County City of Charlottesville agreement for keeping the courts downtown. And Lee, Lloyd's argument was this: since COVID-19 has hit, we're not sure what demand is going to be for parking downtown because people could work virtually and not have to drive into downtown Charlottesville anymore where they're learning at their desk or inside their office. That's a legit argument. I think we're both in agreement there.
Yep.
So I'm going to take that legit argument that Lloyd just made, and I'm going to say this. Lee Elberson, should Charlottesville City Council and Albemarle County Board of Supervisors, before allocating tens of millions of dollars to school reconfiguration, because they don't know how students are going to learn in the future in the classroom or virtually, just like they don't know if people are going to drive their car downtown because they may work remotely or in their office. Should City Council and the Board of Supervisors delay any school reconfiguration dollars because we don't know what learning is going to look like down the road, whether virtual or in person?
No. And here's why I don't think so. Because if you were to ask Rosa Adkins like 2 years ago, hey, what are some of the budget deficits that happen in education, and what could we do with those dollars? She would almost certainly say, we're operating at a 30 or 40% deficit of what we need in order to really make an impact in the public schools. And so now we need our budget plus that surplus to just figure out what's going to work. You can come up, I could theorize the best education plan, and then they could go and try it, and they'd be like, Lee Elberson, your plan didn't work, right? These two steps did, but this didn't. So in the same way that scientific discovery happens, we need to put some items there to try new things in the education system and just expect that some of them are going to fail. We need the budget for that. The teachers need the budget for that. And then the under-resourced families need that for the infrastructure development. We need probably increased transportation if there's going to be limited seating capacity. And if students are still virtual, we need better infrastructure to make sure that they have a private space that they can learn. So I think that the school systems need money now, and they need more than they would have 2 years ago.
Okay, I respect that. I'm going to play devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show. Devil's advocate?
Yeah.
Okay. Learning in a 60-year-old building that has poor ventilation and is not cleaned at the rate that it should be cleaned because of the large size of that building and the lack of personnel to manage the size of the structure of the building, i.e. a school. From my standpoint, learning in a 50-year-old structure seems archaic. Just like having to get in a car and drive to Richmond for an in-person meeting when I can do it over Zoom and to save myself the drive time. Devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show.
Good. Yeah, I think that's a great counterpoint. But we know now that only works for a very small subset of students, right? I mentioned this concept of intrinsic learners. The students that are succeeding in Zoom right now and doing just as well as they did last year or maybe better is a very small percentage. It's probably 5 to 8% of those students who are able to see and manage their schedule well. The rest of the students are really missing out on what just that building does. A building and bells provide structure and accountability. Even if the teachers in there aren't even teaching from a curriculum, it's structure and accountability that, hey, you're gonna obey this structure, and at the end of it, we're going to take a test. This is how a project gets managed. Now you could argue the curriculum and its efficacy and say, well, honestly, if you delivered it via Zoom, it might be better. But we know that the engagement isn't there. So if you don't have a place for students to socialize and you don't have rigid structure that holds them 100% accountable, we know that system is going to produce poor results, with the small exception of those intrinsic learners that are doing well this year. So that's my counter.
That's a good counter.
To your discussion. As adults, you and I can both do this. I've been learning a course on Coursera called Managing the Business of the Future, and I'm like, this is great. I prefer this to like going to UVA in person. I can do this at my own pace, but we're both intrinsically motivated to do that. When we were in our teenage years,
yeah, it was completely different. I was
maybe
not.
You were motivated.
No.
Okay, all right.
No, I was not. I love this guy. I love this guy. All right, this is okay. Why don't we close on this? You always get me thinking, dude. Lee Elberson, Claiborne Education. Is your mom Cindy?
My mom is Cindy.
Okay,
yes.
she's watching now. Cindy raised a hell of a son. Okay, is this Cindy's art behind you?
No, this is my dad's art. My dad passed away 3 years ago. There's an entire, the whole house is just filled with it. I'll send you some pictures
Please.
of it later. This should belong in an exhibit. This is a whole tribal series he did. He's got things like this. Boom.
I
Look
love
at
it.
this. He just one day he decided to make this. It's just
Red is
amazing.
my favorite color. That's why I really like the art, because it seems like red is a big aspect of his art. Here's the final question I'm gonna ask you here, okay? And I love where this interview's gone. And maybe in 3 minutes or so, if we'll close. So I think
Cool.
if the future of a university, let's just talk out loud. We're spitballing hypotheticals. If a future of a university, Lee, like a UVA, is instead of getting, say, 20,000 kids to learn in person in Charlottesville, what if they were able to get 200,000 kids to learn remotely all over the world through Coursera, okay? If they were able to do this, their overhead associated with building maintenance and their overhead associated with personnel to maintain those buildings would dramatically go down. We all know this. So if the future of college education is this remote virtual learning environment, which we all see potentially coming down the road, why can this not be the future of public education at the high school, middle school, and elementary level? Could the future of public education at the high school, middle, and elementary level be a much more aggregated teacher leadership core that is using the internet to roll out the education to people across the country, as opposed to a leadership core in individual municipalities across America, similar to the university model going remote?
Yeah.
That's a broad
So
question.
I think it's a broad question. I think it's really interesting. I think a lot of parents and college students now are thinking about what is the value proposition of Harvard? What's the value proposition of UVA? If some of the classes are in person, could I just do a couple of Coursera courses? And is it possible to do a few UVA courses and piece together education that way? I do think that is the wave of the future, is putting together a resume that is purely unique. That way it's not just a bunch of UVA grads with McIntyre, like business degrees, and it's like, how do you differentiate them? But I think the road from here to there is decades. I think that change happens very, very slow. And the university system already has that overhead, and they are going to probably transition into that system 1% a year or something. And so we're looking at a very long runway for them to do that. It's really tough to disrupt that system. If COVID doesn't completely disrupt it, I don't know what it's going to take to disrupt it. So I do think that in the future years, we will see UVA starting to leverage more online classes and virtual classes, and they figured some of that out now. But I think in terms of like piecing together from middle school to college, we're decades away from that.
Well said. Okay. Hey, you got everybody thinking again, per usual. Lee Elberson, CEO, Claiborne Education. Also, the chairman, right, of the Community Investment Collaborative. Is that right?
That's
Mr.
correct,
Chairman?
yeah.
Mr. Chairman here? We had the chairwoman of Piedmont Housing, Crystal Napier, on the show on Wednesday, and she's doing CIC right now.
That's actually, I think I've recognized her name. Yeah, I looked at the class. That's great. Yeah.
Crystal Napier is the owner of Renee's Boutique, the chairwoman of Piedmont Housing Alliance as well in CIC. Lee is A-plus people. Please say this to Cindy. She raised a hell of a son.
I will make sure to tell that, Jerry. She watches your show frequently, so she definitely appreciates it.
Thank you for coming. Hey, Lee, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, Jerry. Talk to you soon,
All
man.
right. Thank you, Lee. Lee Elberson is A-plus people. That dude has an IQ that is off the charts. You know that dude is a rocket scientist by degree? Literally, a rocket scientist by degree. Lee Elberson, CEO of Claiborne, and the chairman of the Community Investment Collaborative. All right, get your comments in. We'll close the show in 3 or 4 minutes. But get your comments in, and we'll relay them on air. Marquise Johnson. Hello. What's up, Marquise Johnson? He's got a number of comments here. Let's see. So, Jerry, why is gentrification so important to you? You talk about Vinegar Hill and you say it was great, but really look at the pain from that. Y'all ready for the social problems that come with that? All the West Main Streetscape project is going to do is push us out of the city we slaved to build and help grow. I respect that comment, Marquise Johnson. In fact, I agree with this comment. I think the West Main Streetscape project will undoubtedly drive tailwinds or increase momentum behind gentrification of Fifeville, Star Hill, and 10th and Page. No question about it. This is the scales of justice that we're left with, all right? West Main Streetscape project. It's going to bridge UVA to the downtown mall. West Main's the most important road in the city of Charlottesville. Legitimate argument can be made for that. West Main, a lot of businesses are counting on the Streetscape project. West Main has got millions of dollars contributed from the state of Virginia. Those contributions will go away if we don't start this project. West Main Streetscape project, UVA is contributing to this project. Those contributions will go away if we don't start those projects. That's on one side of the scales of justice. The other side of the scales of justice, Star Hill neighborhood's going to get white and rich. Fifeville neighborhood's going to get white and rich. 10th and Page neighborhood is going to get white and rich. People will choose to live on and around West Main Street when the project is completed because it has all the bells and whistles. Just like 30, 40 years ago, people chose to live on and around the downtown mall after we invested the money to take the mall from car-centric to pedestrian-centric. If we do not see this happening, we are not honest with ourselves and not reading the history of Virginia, of Charlottesville, Virginia. Scales of justice. Marquise also asks, am I saying to put education on the back burner? You can't say that because that would disenfranchise children. They're still having connectivity issues from Prospect to the projects when it comes to learning online. I respect that. I respect that, Marquise Johnson. Am I saying the West Main Streetscape and the $50 million project should trump school reconfiguration? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there's no clear-cut right answer. The Commonwealth and the University of Virginia have told the city of Charlottesville, we will remove this money, millions of dollars that we're allocating to this project if you don't act quickly. Without UVA's money and the Commonwealth's money, this West Main project ain't gonna happen. There's no right answer here. And who are we to be convinced that school reconfiguration is the right path? Who are we to know that investing tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into buildings that are 50 and 60 years old, buildings that cannot be cleaned to the standards we need clean because we don't have the personnel to clean them? Who are we to say that we should continue to invest tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into archaic structures that we call schools when we don't know what learning is going to turn into because of COVID? Crazy times, man. Cindy says Lee was a great kid to raise. He's a great kid, Cindy. I'm a huge fan of your son. Blake Hawthorne has some great comments here. This is Blake Hawthorne. The entire education system is based on a platform and curriculum that's antiquated in terms that its foundation is pre-analog in structure and the world needs and learning points are already in a digital universe. And the longer we wait, the further behind we're going to be with our kids in the future. Dude, I agree with that. This is basically what the guy is saying here. Listen, and I'm going to get out of here very quickly here because how much time has the show run? I don't want to go over 60 minutes because I want to load the show to Instagram. Where are we at, Judah?
57:40.
All right, make sure you let me know when it's at 59 minutes and 15 seconds, okay? Please. This is the concept of public school. I'm going to outline the concept of public school as I see it. You wake up in the morning, you get dressed. You walk or you get driven to a bus stop. You wait in the heat, in the cold, in the snow, in the rain for a bus. You get on this metal thing that hurts the environment because of gas and other fumes coming from the bus. On this bus that has poor ventilation, 30, 40 kids and a bus driver drive around town causing traffic congestion, creating safety issues, and negatively impacting the environment from a gas and fume standpoint, an emission standpoint. After this tin can that has 30 kids and a bus driver gets to a school, the 30 kids get off the bus with a heavy bag of books that could be hurting their development in their spine. They walk into a building that is antiquated, has not been updated, is not cleaned that regularly, does not have great ventilation, is crowded, is busy, and from a COVID standpoint, might not be the safest from what you're transmitting in the air. You proceed to learn for 6 or 7 hours in this crowded environment that doesn't have great ventilation, and that's how you try to up your education. Instead, you could be learning at home via the internet with technology improving without having to leave the house. Now, the concern you have is the social interaction that you would lose. Can we not get that social interaction in other places besides $100 million antiquated structures? Does the social interaction that kids need to become better human beings, where are we at time-wise?
59.50.
Does the social interaction have to happen in $50 or $100 million buildings that require taxpayer money and eat up a large portion of the budget from each municipality from California to Virginia? Why can't the social interaction happen in fields, athletic arenas, in the neighborhood, in the cul-de-sac, in the park? I don't know. I've always been intrigued by that. I got to get out of here. This is the I Love CVille show. My name is Jerry Miller. Daniel Rutherford, Nelson County Commonwealth Attorney, was awesome. Lee Elberson is always awesome. Claiborne Education is lucky to have that dude. Charlottesville, Central Virginia is lucky to have that dude. He's such an advocate for everybody. Lee Elberson's A+ people. Judah Wickhauer is the director. My name is Jerry Miller. This is the I Love CVille show. We have real talk here. We talk about real stuff. We talk about race, right? We talk about what's wrong and what's right and what needs to change. And we talk about why the haves have and why the have-nots don't. We don't bullshit. It's real stuff. And some days it's going to irk you and rub you the wrong way. And some days you're going to be like, you know what he's saying? I've been thinking about it as well. Regardless, I'm going to come in here in front of this microphone and just be honest. And whether you agree with me or disagree with me, so be it. But you will get an honest man's take every time. I'm out.